Hey there, this is Ina from Taproot Tarot, and today I'm doing a tag from Beverly Butterfly called the Butterfly Book Tag, and it is about various books that we use in our witchy practices, and I would consider tarot to be a witchy practice. Desiree tagged me, and this is Desiree's first VR, so I'm glad she participated and got me to join in as well. I was tagged a couple weeks ago. I think she responded after about a month after she was tagged. So this is an older tag, but it seems like a lot of fun. So I wanted to try it out. Beverly Butterfly has a witch and disability advocacy channel, and it's really good. I've watched some of her videos, and it's great. I will definitely tag her original video in the comments as well as Desiree's. I know a lot of folks don't necessarily identify with the label witch, even those of us who are into tarot, and I think it's because of the stigma around that term, and I would say let's get rid of the stigma and normalize the term, because even for those of us who don't consider tarot to be witchcraft, there are those out here who would like to get rid of these kinds of practices and do consider it witchcraft. So let's take the power away from the stigma by normalizing terms like witchcraft. I think a witch is just somebody who, regardless of gender or spiritual background, incorporates practices into their day that help empower them. The first prompt is, what witchcraft specialty draws you to buying a new book? And the answer to that is tarot, for sure. I have a lot of tarot books, and I went ahead and grabbed my very first tarot book that I bought in 2019 after buying the Mother Peace Tarot. And this is by Esther Frankel Tishman. On this title, she has her first name listed as Lisa. She now goes by her middle name, Esther. And this is a great book, and it's my only book, my only tarot book that's RWS based. Now, Esther does incorporate all different tarot traditions into her practice, and she's actually the one who got me into Marseille, and even the concept of reading playing cards and things like that. So she has a new book coming out, I think in the fall, called Tarot Bones. So I'm definitely going to be getting that. But that was my first tarot book. The next prompt is, which book in your collection do you refer to daily? And I would say probably that's a stretch to say that I would do anything daily other than the bare minimum, like feeding the animals and brushing my teeth. But if I were to come close to daily, it would be this one. And this is the one I got in 2020 when I first got into TDM books. This is Anna Maria Marsucci's Marseille Tarot book, and there is an updated version. And this is just a great resource. I don't reference it as often as I used to because I am trying to get away from looking up meanings, but for years that is how I used the Tarot de Marseille, was looking up meanings, and I love her interpretations. The newer version of the book has these really big, nice pictures that are based on her deck rather than what used to be the default Lo Scarabeo deck, which is based on the Burdell. I think this one's a lot less expensive, and either one is great. This one is expanded a bit, and one of the main differences that I've noticed, it's normally traditional in TDM, if you do split the triumphs into a number system, that is subdivision by tens. So you would have 0 for the Fool, but then both the Magician and Fortitude would be associated with the number 1. And that's done in a way, in my mind anyway, not to necessarily associate the triumphs with a number, but for me it's a way to remember meanings for the numbers in the pip cards. So for example, if I draw a 7, the first thing I'm going to think of is the Chariot and how the energies of the Chariot might apply to that situation. I might then think about the Star and see if the energies of the Star are more relevant. Now, it is traditional in some historical decks to sometimes have the World card at 20, and or have the World card second to last, I should say, if not third to last if you have the Fool last, and then to have Trumpets or the Angel or Judgment as 21. So I do sometimes switch those because I really see the Trumpet card as a revelation or an announcement, and that makes much more sense to me as a 1. And then the World card, completion, the beginning and end of the cycle, I see that as a 10. So I put the World card, I usually think of that as 20, and I think of Trumpets as 21. So that's just my little quirk. But The cool thing is, though, that for folks who prefer the subdivision by 7, there is an expanded chapter or an expanded section on that subdivision, which is not included in the yellow first edition book. I still always keep this page marked between the 4 and the 5, because she does talk about how the number 5 makes its appearance in each of these cards, whether it is a triumph or a pip. And she does that for all the numbers 1 through 10. And so I always keep a bookmark in both of these right in the middle of that numbers section, just to have a quick reference when I want to look up a number. So that is Reading and Understanding the Tarot of Marseille by Anna Maria Mersucci. The next prompt is, what non-witchcraft book has inspired your practice? You might remember this one from my deep dive on the Tarot of Paris. This is The Secret Language of the Renaissance. And this is just a really cool book going through different types of Renaissance art and the symbols contained within, which really helps inform my tarot practice. So check out that video, the deep dive on the Tarot of Paris, if you want to learn a little bit about how Renaissance art affects tarot. And another interesting one that I have is this 1,000 Symbols book, What Shapes Mean in Art and Myth. This is by Rowena and Rupert Shepard. And I haven't taken the time to really dig into how this book is structured so that I can intentionally find things in it. However, what I do is kind of flip through it, and if something looks familiar, I will read up on it. So I did mark a couple that I thought you might find interesting. This one is Tike or Fortuna, goddess of chance associated with female personifications of cities and invoked to protect communities. Tike appears as a blindfolded figure with a wheel or globe indicating inconsistency, or a rudder or sail buffeted by the winds of chance, and with a long forelock that could be seized by the fortunate. Sometimes we do see a blindfolded woman representing fortune, and we definitely see that wheel a lot. And there are others here, like the Graces are ones that I've talked about before. We've got Muses, so those are kind of neat. And another one that I thought was interesting, these papal keys caught my attention, and it turns out that these can be a representative of St. Peter. Among the apostles, he has supreme authority, which implies, I guess, the institution of the papacy. He became the first bishop of Rome, according to this, and one of his symbols are the papal keys. And we see those show up in the Pope and Papess cards in the tarot. And I think it's kind of funny that this heathen is learning all sorts of stuff about Christianity through tarot. I think that's great. Here's a little bit about the 4 living creatures, which are the 4 evangelists. So it talks about the symbolism of the angel, the lion, the ox, and the eagle in the world card. This isn't specific to the world card, of course, but those do appear in the world card. So it's a handy book. I really like it. And the images are so simple that it's easy to flip through and just let symbols jump out at you until you find something that you feel like looking up. Next, who is your favorite witch author and why? And I wasn't really sure until I found this big old stack of books. Oh, that's not even all of them. This big old stack of books by the same author. This is Laura Tempest Zakroff, and this is my first book by her, which I got in 2019. It's called Weave the Liminal, Living Modern Traditional Witchcraft. And it's really good. It's non-dogmatic. You don't have to have a particular spiritual practice to benefit from her books. It is rooted in tradition without being like you have to be a member of a specific club or anything like that. So I really love her work. She also comes from a decolonized approach as well. And my second book by her is an older one, The Witch's Cauldron. And I think I just really wanted to buy a cute little cast iron cauldron and know what to do with it. And I remember this book not being what I expected, but I don't remember what it was that I expected it to be. But it is a great book. It's got lots of practices you can do if you have one of these little mini cauldrons, or even if you don't, because she has suggestions for other types of vessels as well. As far as I know, this book was published without necessarily the intention of being turned into oracle cards, but it was turned into the Liminal Spirits Oracle. So once I found out that existed, I thought, ooh, I love that book. I'll go ahead and get the oracle. And this is a lovely oracle, and it has its own guidebook. So you don't necessarily have to have the whole book to use this, but they do inform each other. Once I saw this, I realized, oh, she's got another set, which is the Anatomy of a Witch book and Oracle. And this Oracle has its own guidebook as well. Now, these ones I would assume were made to go together, or perhaps this book was written with the intention of doing an Oracle deck as well. I also have a couple of collections that she's edited. The Gorgon's Guide to Magical Resistance and the New Aradia, A Witch's Handbook to Magical Resistance. I think this is actually the first one, and the Gorgon's Guide is the second. And these are essays by various different authors on how to create a witchcraft practice that benefits the world and resists those who would do harm. That is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books by Laura Tempest Zakroff, if you count the Oracle deck guidebooks. So I would say she's probably my favorite witch author. And let me just show you a picture of her. I also follow her on social media and highly recommend any of her work. I think it's just relatable to a wide variety of people from a number of different practice and spiritual backgrounds. The next question is, if I could write a witchcraft book, what would it be about? And I don't know. I am not qualified to write a witchcraft book, that is for sure. But I have thought about, back in my college years when I was, 25 years ago or more, I was a poet and still occasionally get a little spark of creativity to write some poetry. I was inspired by this poet who wrote poems based on the cards of the Solobusca and the Mantegna. And this is Stuart S. Warren. And it's kind of cool. A lot of these concepts are a little elusive, so it's kind of nice to read a poem to get some inspiration on how to interpret a card. The only thing that bums me out is that it is just a poetry book. And if I were ever to gain the experience necessary to write such a thing, I would probably want to put historical notes, because that's the one thing I'm really wishing for, are the historical notes. Now, of course, that makes it a much bigger project, but it would be very cool to be able to look at this and then maybe read a little blurb in addition to the poem about who this figure is and what the symbolism of the card represents. But again, of course, that makes it a huge project requiring a big section of works cited. So I understand why Stuart Warren didn't do that. But that's my one wish. So if I were to write a book like this, I'd probably include little historical blurbs as well. That being said, I don't see myself writing a book on this subject. It's not my area of expertise, and I wouldn't be qualified to write such a book for at least a decade or more. The final prompt is show 3 books from your to-be-read pile. And I have got a huge to-be-read pile, which I'm guessing a lot of us do. And each of these has an associated deck. So a couple of weeks ago, I got out this Vitali deck to use as a reference for a couple of cards in the Tarot of Paris. So that was my Tarot of Paris deep dive. And I got to reading this little white book with text by Gabriele Mandel. And it made me wonder if he had any other books that he'd written, because from what I could gather, this is in Italian. What I could gather through the translation app, this seemed like a really good, really great writing. So I did find something. This is the Concise Guide to Tarot, and it's a great little book. It was written in 1994. It has a nice history that acknowledges esotericism and the role it plays in the history of tarot, but then gets right down to the more evidence-based history of tarot. And it features some really cool images of historical cards. So it has a history section, and then using one of the Visconti decks, it has some interpretations of the cards, which are really good. And then the end of the book is really cool because it has card games, but it has 2 different tarot solitaire methods, I guess. So it has Lola Monte's Method and the Magic Circle. So I haven't read this yet. I've skimmed through it. So this is in my to be read pile. I've heard, I think it was Kara from Kara Tarot mention playing solitaire. And then I've heard others mention, you know, ways of interacting with your decks that aren't just reading. There was somebody else who made a video recently, and I'm blanking out on who it was, about how to interact with your decks in ways that aren't just reading tarot. I will try to find that video and I will link it below. Those have made me kind of want to learn how to play solitaire with my tarot decks as a way to interact and bond with them. So now I've got a couple of instructions on doing that. And I know how to play solitaire just with a regular deck of cards, but transferring that over to tarot, it seems like it would be a little different. So anyway, then I featured the Prager Tarot in a video not too long ago, and it's just a gorgeous tarot deck, and I really wanted to learn more about it. And there's only one book that I know of that was ever printed about it, and that's this one by Günther Hager. And it is in German. I took 2 years of German, like, gosh, 30 plus years ago, so I don't remember much of it. So this is in my to be read pile because I'm going to have to translate it, and I'm sure that I won't read it cover to cover, but it says numerology in tarot, and that interests me because the Prager Tarot has a different pip system. It only has pips 1 through 4. So I thought, you know, that would be cool to check this out, see what his suggestions are, maybe learn a little bit about this deck, and then do a follow-up video on the Prager Tarot. My fear is that this is going to be more of a very general tarot book and not necessarily specific to the Prager Tarot, but we'll see. I don't know yet because I haven't read it. The next one, I was watching a video by Mystica Tarot on Jodorowsky and how her view of tarot differs from his. I will post that video in my description. It is in Spanish, but it's worth watching with subtitles if you don't speak Spanish, for sure. And in it, she mentioned the author Andrea Vitali. Let me double check that. Yeah, Andrea Vitali, and recommended his work. And it turns out he's got a whole website with a bunch of articles that are really great on the tarot. And so I will link that video by Tarot Mystica, as well as this website by Andrea Vitali. But I was looking for books in English that he may have written, which is not necessarily, he has put all of his thoughts for free online. But it made me realize I already have a couple that are part of decks that I have. One of them, he wrote the Lo Scarabeo Museum Quality Solabusca guidebook. That one's pretty brief, and I've read that already. That prompted me to dig this one, the Visconti di Madrone. I dug it out of the bottom of the drawer and set it out so I'd remember to read it. Because there's actually like an 84 pages of tarot history by Andrea Vitali. So it looks really good. I haven't read it yet because I set it out and then I forgot about it until today when I was reading those prompts, and I thought, oh yeah, that's in my to read pile. So this is back on the top of my to read pile. There's also an Italian section, but yeah, there's a solid first 84 pages of really great information by Andrea Vitali without having to buy a separate book to check out that author. So like I said, I'll post all those links in the description. We are then recommended to tag a few people. I think I will tag Kathy from Nothing So Strange because I'm sure she would have great book suggestions. Also Tammy Pie, I think I'll tag. She seems to like to do tags, and I really enjoy her tags. I just watched her video about having to go to high ground from a possible tsunami. And yeah, Tammy Pie, if you'd like to show us your books, that would be really interesting. Now, I have a lot of TarotTube friends who have done a bunch of book videos recently, so I'm not sure if they want to do even more book videos. So there's a ton of people I could tag. But one of my first thoughts was I think Kara Tarot would have some good suggestions. I don't know if she would be comfortable with the witchcraft label. And I know a lot of folks like Desiree and Elizabeth from More Intuitive Me, if she did the tag. But I heard her talking about it live, where they wouldn't necessarily assign themselves the label of witch or call their tarot practices witchcraft, but this tag can still be done even as a neutral tag. And I would also, like I said, encourage us to destigmatize the term witch before they try to outlaw us again. So I will tag a few folks, no pressure. And anyone else watching this who'd like to participate, I'd love to see what books you're reading in the tarot or otherwise witchy subject. So thank you so much for watching today. Let me know what books you're reading are in your to-read pile or have inspired your practice. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again. Bye.